In this video, we're going to look at 2 example student responses to question 5 on our Eduqas Style Component 2 paper for English language. Remember, you can pause the video at any point if you need time to read through what's on screen. So our question is, using the information from both texts, explain briefly in your own words how P.T. Barnum found freaks interesting. It's worth 4 marks, meaning you need to find at least 4 pieces of information. Let's start by looking at student A's response. Press pause now to give yourself time to read it through carefully, and press play again when you're ready. So, what this student has done really well is they've made it really clear which text they're referring to each time. Also, they've attempted to make 4 separate points which answer the question. Unfortunately, though, their points aren't accurate. Let's start with the first one. This evidence doesn't show Barnum's interest in freaks, as the question is asking. Instead, it simply shows the type of people he had in his show. Following this, student A states that Barnum described his freaks as different, when in fact it was the author of the article who said this, writing that Barnum and his colleagues created and perpetuated ethnic stereotypes and cordoned off a swath of humanity as different. The word different means something else in its given context. Here, what different actually means is that Barnum purposefully drew attention to people because of disabilities or their ethnicity to purposely make them stand out from everyone else. Because both of the points on source A are inaccurate, we already know this student is going to be limited to 1 mark, regardless of how many answers they get right from source B. This is because they're no longer successfully selecting information from 2 texts, which is what the question requires. When they move on to source B, they accurately use their own words to explain P.T. Barnum's interest in Tom Thumb. In their final point, student A has selected an accurate piece of evidence from the source to show P.T. Barnum's interest in freaks. But this response would only receive 1 of the 4 possible marks because the student didn't make any accurate points on source A. Now let's see how student B answered the same question. Press pause now to give yourself time to read through their answer carefully, and press play again when you're ready. One notable difference between this student and the previous student's response is the both statement. By grouping 2 similar ideas together into 1 sentence, this student has saved themselves time while earning themselves 2 easy marks. They make it clear which text they're referring to and give evidence from each, beauties and remarkable. Following this, they again make it clear which text they're discussing through the openers source A and source B. With their second point, they've had to explain how this shows his interest, as the evidence isn't self-explanatory. Nonetheless, they receive the mark. In their final point, they don't use evidence because they don't need to, but they still demonstrate a clear understanding of how P.T. Barnum shows his interest in freaks, and so they get another mark. Overall, this response would get full marks, 4 out of 4. So, let's finish with some do's and don'ts for this question. Do: make it clear which text you're referring to each time you make a point. If possible, join points together with a both statement to receive 2 marks. But be careful here, they must link, meaning there must be a similarity between both sources. Include answers from both texts, and try to include an equal number from each. And try to give at least 2 points on each text. If you only offer 1 answer and it's wrong, your marks will be limited to 1 mark overall. Finally, make sure you stay focused on the question and refer to the keywords. And now some don'ts. Don't overcomplicate the question by explaining, unless it's to help you answer the question, like student B's example. Don't force a both statement in because you think it'll save you time. Not all exam papers will enable you to join points together, so don't rely on this. And you don't need to write loads, just make as many points as the number of marks. Okay, we'll leave it there. In an earlier pod, we suggested it would be worth creating your own 1-mark questions on 19th and 21st century texts. So, why not use these same sources and create some 4-mark select and synthesize questions? Good luck!